So picture this for a second.
Hmm.
You're standing in the freezing, snow-covered mountains of northern Japan.
Oh, wow. Okay. Setting a scene.
Yeah, right. And the air is just, it's so cold it actually hurts your lungs and is completely, entirely still.
Right.
But ahead of you, lumbering through this dense white powder, is a massive, like 400-pound Asian black bear.
Okay.
And tracking that bear, closing in through the deep drifts, is a dog. But here's the thing. This dog isn't barking. It isn't howling or baying like a typical hound would do. It is stalking its prey in just absolute chilling silence.
It's a really vivid image, and historically, it's actually a highly accurate snapshot of a very specialized predator at work.
Right. Now, I want you to take that exact same animal,
Yeah.
hit fast forward a few centuries, and just drop it into a modern suburban living room.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's quite a shift.
I mean, imagine a toddler running around shrieking with a toy, a robotic vacuum zooming across the hardwood, a house cat darting under the sofa. You are looking at a creature genetically engineered for extreme survival and, dangerous combat, suddenly expected to just be this chill family pet.
Which creates this really profound behavioral culture clash. I mean, we are essentially asking an ancient, highly specialized operating system to run on modern suburban hardware.
That is the perfect way to frame our mission for today's deep dive. We are exploring the majestic, deeply complex Akita.
Such a fascinating breed.
It really is. Most people know this breed is the ultimate symbol of loyalty, right? You've probably heard the legendary story of Hachiko the dog, who famously waited at a Tokyo train station for 9 years for an owner who'd passed away.
Yeah, that story makes everybody cry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But our goal today is to look past those romanticized Hollywood versions of the breed. We want to understand the reality of how this dog interacts with the most vulnerable members of a modern household, like children, cats, and small pets.
Yeah, and to figure out how a dog transitions from a mountain hunter to a family pet, we've pulled together a really fascinating stack of materials for you.
We've got quite the variety today.
We do. We're looking at the American Kennel Club breed standards, detailed behavioral guides from organizations like Wood Green and Paulway, historical records of Japanese hunting practices, and some incredibly raw, first-hand accounts from owners who navigate this reality every single day.
And what stands out immediately in these sources, to me at least, is that to understand how an Akita views your house cat or, your pet guinea pig, we have to rewind.
Right, you have to look at the environment that forged them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need to travel to the Tushoku region of northern Japan, specifically the Odot area, I believe it's called.
Here, yeah, Odot. And the direct ancestor of the modern Akita is the Matagi Inu.
The Mataki.
Right. Matagi essentially refers to the traditional winter hunters of that region. And these dogs, they were not bred to retrieve ducks from a pond.
Definitely not.
They were tasked with tracking and subduing massive, dangerous game. Asian black bears, wild boars, and Japanese seros, which are these highly agile, goat-like antelopes.
See, the sources mention the environment was so brutal that these dogs actually developed webbed toes, which I'm trying to picture that, because usually you associate webbed toes with water dogs, right, like labs, to help them swim.
Yeah, that's the common assumption.
So why does a mountain dog need webbed feet?
Well, what's fascinating here is that for a retriever, webbing displaces water, but for the Matagi Inu, it displaces weight.
Oh, like snowshoes.
Exactly like snowshoes. Those webbed toes distribute the dog's mass so they can stay on top of the deep snow rather than sinking in. They even retain their front dew claws, those little extra claws higher up on the leg.
Right.
They use them as literal ice picks to pull themselves out of freezing water or scale icy embankments.
That is wild. They're biologically engineered all-terrain vehicles.
They really are.
But the hunting style is what really caught my attention. A dog tracking a 400-pound bear without making a sound feels almost ghostly. Because usually you think of hounds baying to corner prey. Why would silence be prized? Wouldn't you want the dog to intimidate the bear?
See, intimidation often triggers a fight or flight response way too early. Baying alerts the prey.
Oh, I see.
The Matagi hunters needed these dogs, who were often working in male-female pairs, by the way, to close the distance and surround the bear without triggering a premature flight.
Or a fight before the hunters got there.
Exactly. A deadly confrontation before the human hunters could get into position with their weapons would be disastrous. So silence was a tactical advantage for ambush predators. They stalk, they close the distance, and they strike without announcing their presence.
That makes perfect sense in a snowy forest. But let's unpack this and apply that biology to a modern hallway. We are basically dropping a stealth predator into a house with a tabby cat.
Yeah.
So the cat gets spooked by the doorbell and darts across the kitchen floor. To the dog, that isn't a roommate, is it?
Not at all. Sudden movement from a small animal bypasses the cognitive thinking part of the dog's brain and hits the amygdala directly.
It's just pure instinct at that point.
Right. It triggers an involuntary predatory sequence: stalk, chase, catch. And because they are hardwired silent hunters, you won't necessarily hear a frenzy of barking to warn you that the chase is on. The dog will simply act.
Which is terrifying. And it's why the behavioral guys from Wood Green and thekitney.com are so uncompromising on this point.
Very uncompromising.
They state very clearly that Akitas generally do not tolerate pets that resemble prey. If you have guinea pigs, hamsters, rabbits, or cats, bringing an Akita into that environment is putting those smaller animals in serious danger.
The first-hand owner accounts echo this repeatedly, too. Owners talk about the constant vigilance required.
It must be exhausting.
Oh, definitely. Because even if an Akita seems to tolerate an indoor cat for months, a single moment where the cat behaves like prey, like running away quickly or scrambling up a fence that can trigger that ancient software. This is why the consensus among experts is that Akitas generally do best in homes where they are the only pet.
And that only pet rule extends to other dogs too, doesn't it? The AKC highlights that Akitas are highly prone to same-sex aggression.
Yes.
Two female Akitas, or two male Akitas, living together is frequently just a recipe for violence.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the evolutionary biology of the region they came from. Resources in the frozen Japanese mountains were incredibly scarce.
Right, food wasn't exactly plentiful.
Exactly. Two males are naturally going to view each other as competition for limited food and mating rights. The dog doesn't realize food now comes reliably in a 40-pound bag every Tuesday,
Their DNA still operates as if they are surviving a blizzard.
Exactly. So if someone absolutely must have a second dog, the only viable combination is usually a dog of the opposite sex. And even then, their interactions require intense management.
Okay, so we have this intense, hardwired drive to hunt and control their external environment. But that biological need for control doesn't stop at chasing things that run away. It also dictates how they manage the space and the objects around them.
Which brings up the second major phase of their historical development.
Right, because they weren't just hunters.
Right. After their time primarily as hunters, Akitas transitioned into a new, elevated role. They became guard dogs for Japanese royalty and samurai.
Wow.
They were intentionally bred to be territorial, dominant, and to consider their home their absolute domain.
So they were a literal castle guardian.
Yeah.
And this territorial nature extends to their stuff, right? The sources point out that Akitas are incredibly prone to resource guarding.
Oh, heavily.
We're talking about their food bowls, their favorite toys, or even just an arbitrary, comfortable spot on the rug. They view these things as their personal property.
And resource guarding is a perfectly natural canine behavior. In the wild, if you don't fiercely protect your food or your safe sleeping area, you just don't survive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The challenge is scale. When you take a natural instinct to guard a bone and put it inside a dog that can weigh up to 130 pounds, you have a situation that demands serious respect. They have zero tolerance for having their personal space violated or being teased.
I want to just turn to you, the listener, and put you in the dog's shoes for a second.
Well,
Imagine you are an elite 130-pound security guard. You are trying to take a nap on a rug you consider your assigned post.
right.
And suddenly someone comes up, pokes you in the ribs, and tries to pull your blanket out from under you. How would you react? I mean, you wouldn't just politely roll over. You'd defend yourself in your space.
And an Akita possesses the physical power to make that defense catastrophic.
Which is just chilling.
Okay.
And that spatial anxiety brings up a terrifying variable. A dog that is fiercely protective of its nap spot and its toys is suddenly sharing a living room with the most chaotic, unpredictable element in human existence: a toddler.
Yeah, the intersection of young children and Akitas is where we see some of the most profound misunderstandings of the breed.
Here's where it gets really interesting, actually. I want to challenge this piece of folklore I found in the sources. There is this pervasive idea of the nanny dog.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Several historical accounts claim that Japanese mothers used to leave their babies in the custody of Akitas while they ran errands in the village, basically using this giant bear hunter as a furry babysitter.
Right.
When I read that, I was genuinely confused. If they guard their resources so fiercely, wouldn't they view the baby as their ultimate resource to protect? Doesn't that make them a great guardian for kids?
It is incredibly tempting to believe that myth because it validates our human desire to project our own morality onto animals,
Yeah, we want the Disney version.
Exactly. We want to believe the dog protects the baby out of human-like love. And while Akitas can be devoted to children in their immediate family, relying on that to leave them alone together is incredibly dangerous.
Modern behavior is strongly cautioned against this, right?
Absolutely. Protecting a static, sleeping infant in a quiet village is astronomically different from tolerating a modern 3-year-old.
Because a toddler doesn't understand resource guarding. They just see a fluffy dog and want to grab its toy.
Precisely. Akitas have an incredibly low tolerance for loud, erratic, unpredictable behavior. A child running, shrieking, waving their arms, or suddenly grabbing the dog from behind that can trigger either the dog's prey drive or their defensive guarding instincts.
And the breakdown in communication between a small child and this specific breed is just massive. The Paulway Behavioral Guide addresses a very common claim from owners after a bite occurs. People constantly say, the dog bit without warning, there was no growl.
But the behaviorists insist that's rarely true.
Right.
The dog was almost certainly communicating, but the humans were deaf to the language. I mean, we expect dogs to communicate like cartoon characters, baring their teeth, snarling, aggressively barking before they strike.
But remember, the Akita is a silent hunter.
Exactly. They communicate discomfort through incredibly subtle physiological stress signals.
So what do those silent warnings actually look like?
Well, a child would never notice them. The dog's body posture might become rigid. They might intentionally avoid eye contact, just turning their head slightly away, or they might yawn when they aren't tired.
Wait, really? Yawning. Why would a dog yawn if it's angry?
Well, it's not anger, actually, it's anxiety. Yawning is a biological displacement behavior.
Oh, interesting.
The dog is experiencing a spike in cortisol and stress, and yawning draws in a deep breath of oxygen to lower their heart rate. It's their way of self-soothing and signaling to the environment, I am uncomfortable, please give me space.
Wow.
Another common sign is freezing completely still, just assessing the threat level.
But to a little kid, a dog freezing just looks like the dog is holding still for a hug. They might run up and throw their arms around its neck.
Right, so the child completely misses the do not enter sign, violates the dog's boundary, and the dog escalates to a bite because they feel their subtle attempts to de-escalate were completely ignored.
That is such a dangerous miscommunication.
And furthermore, Woodgreen notes that Akitas are naturally mouthy dogs. Even in play, they interact with the world using their mouths. When you combine that with their sheer size, they can easily knock a small child over or cause injury without even intending to be aggressive.
Which is why the safety guidelines outlined across all the sources are completely non-negotiable. Playtime between an Akita and a young child must always be actively supervised by an awake, attentive adult.
Always.
And it's not just about managing the dog. It is equally about training the child. Kids have to be taught to never approach the dog while it's eating, never pull its ears, and never bother it while it's sleeping.
It really requires a household that operates on mutual respect and strict boundaries.
Hearing all of this, it just sounds like an immense amount of pressure. If this breed possesses such intense hunting, guarding, and territorial instincts, how do people ever successfully integrate them into a bustling family home? Is it just a lottery where you hope you get a dog with a mellow personality?
It has very little to do with luck, actually. It is entirely about neuroscience and early intervention. The key to integrating an Akita lies in a very specific developmental phase known as the socialization period.
Okay, so Paulway mentions this window occurs specifically between 3 and 14 weeks of age. Why is that specific time frame so critical?
During those 11 weeks, a puppy's brain exhibits peak neuroplasticity. The amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for forming fear associations, is highly impressionable. They are literally building the database of what is considered normal and safe in their world versus what is a threat.
Oh, it's like early childhood development in humans, where kids just absorb languages and social cues effortlessly.
Exactly like that. For a golden retriever, missing out on some socialization might result in a dog that is, a little shy around strangers. But for an Akita, with its genetic predisposition for guarding and territoriality, a lack of early socialization is disastrous. If an Akita puppy doesn't meet friendly strangers, hear the vacuum cleaner, or see other animals during that elastic window, their natural guarding instinct just goes into overdrive later in life.
Everything unknown defaults to being a threat.
Exactly, a threat to be destroyed.
So what does this all mean for you listening? The practical application for an owner bringing a puppy home is to safely expose them to everything. Different environments, sounds, people.
Right, but the sources heavily caution against a concept called flooding.
Oh, yes. Can you break down what flooding means in this context?
Flooding is a common and really dangerous mistake. It happens when an owner forces a terrified puppy into an overwhelming situation like, say, dragging them into the middle of a loud, crowded street festival, hoping the puppy will just eventually realize they aren't dying and get used to it.
That sounds awful. That's like trying to cure someone's fear of spiders by locking them in a closet full of tarantulas. It doesn't cure the fear at all. It just creates profound trauma.
It completely breaks the dog's trust in you. Instead of flooding, the goal is systematic, positive reinforcement.
Using treats and praise.
Yes, you introduce the new, potentially scary element at a distance where the puppy feels safe. If a stranger approaches, the puppy immediately receives high-value treats and calm praise. You are actively rewiring their neural pathways to associate strangers and strange noises with positive outcomes rather than viewing them as invaders.
But training an Akita requires a very specific touch, right?
Right.
They are independent thinkers. They were bred to make their own tactical decisions out in the woods. You can't just bully them into submission.
No, absolutely not.
The sources emphasize that an owner must be a firm, consistent, but entirely gentle leader.
Dominance-based punitive training will destroy your relationship with an Akita. If you use physical force, if you yell, or if you try to alpha roll a dog with this much pride and physical power, they will meet your hostility with hostility.
And the sources suggest punitive training actually makes the dog much more dangerous. I found an analogy in one of the articles that really stuck with me.
Oh, which one?
If you punish a dog for growling, say, you smack them on the nose when they give that low warning growl at a child, you're essentially removing the ticking sound from a time bomb.
Wow. That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. You haven't diffused the bomb, you've just silenced the warning.
Exactly.
The dog learns that communicating their discomfort results in pain. So the next time they feel threatened by the toddler, they won't bother yawning or growling. They will skip the warning entirely and go straight to the bite. You must manage the instinct, not punish the communication.
So how do you manage that instinct safely? I saw the Poway guide mention a specific protocol called the LAT technique.
Yes, LAT stands for look at that. It is a highly effective, modern training method for dogs with massive prey drives or reactivity.
How does it work?
Let's say you are walking your Akita and they spot a cat down the street. Instead of yanking on the leash or yelling no, which just adds tension, you train the dog to look at the trigger and then immediately look back at you for a reward.
Walk me through the mechanics of that. What is actually happening in the dog's brain there?
You are playing with thresholds. You find the distance where the dog notices the cat but isn't quite lunging yet. When they look at the cat, you use a marker word or a clicker and offer a high-value treat. Over time, the dog learns that the sudden appearance of a small, darting animal isn't a cue to initiate the stalk chase catch sequence.
Oh, I see.
It becomes a cue to turn their head and pay attention to you. You are using the dopamine reward from the treat to override the adrenaline spike of the prey drive.
You're basically giving them a new job. Instead of hunt the cat, the job becomes report the cat to my owner.
Exactly. And combined with a rock-solid leave-it command, this gives the owner the tools to diffuse a resource guarding situation or stop a prey drive chase before it reaches the point of no return. It establishes leadership through clear communication and mutual reward rather than fear.
It fundamentally shifts the perspective of dog ownership, doesn't it? We aren't trying to break the dog's spirit or erase its history. We are trying to give them a framework to exist safely in our world.
And providing that framework is not a weekend hobby. It is a lifelong, daily commitment from the owner.
It absolutely is. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today exploring the deep psychology of this magnificent breed.
We really have.
To summarize for you listening, the Akita is a breathtaking, fiercely loyal companion. There is a very good reason they are considered a national treasure in Japan. But their complex temperament, this unique fusion of a silent mountain hunter and a highly territorial royal guardian, it means they are not a plug-and-play family pet.
They are definitely not a golden retriever wearing a bear suit.
Far from it. They require a highly dedicated owner, someone who deeply respects their spatial boundaries, who takes the time to learn their subtle, silent body language, who actively and safely manages every single interaction with children and small pets, and who commits to lifelong, positive reinforcement training.
This raises an important question that I think the information in these sources points to a broader philosophical question about how we interact with working dogs in general.
What's that?
Well, in our modern desire to keep these ancient, highly specialized breeds as urban house pets, are we arrogantly expecting the dog to change its deeply ingrained DNA to fit our convenient lifestyle? Or is it our responsibility to adapt our lifestyle to honor the dog's true nature?
That is a really profound thought to leave on. If you bring a 130-pound silent hunter into your living room, you have to accept that the living room has to change, not just the dog.
Right.
You are inviting history into your home, and you have to respect the survival instincts they carry in their genes.
We owe them that understanding.
We certainly do. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Akita. We hope it gave you a new appreciation for the incredible biology of these animals and the heavy responsibility that comes with sharing a life with them. Keep learning, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.